Chris Small is the Managing Director of ABC Business Sales, the largest business brokerage in New Zealand. They see more deals than any other combined company in the country. There was a great revelation to me, and it's in relation to what's going on in our economy right now and how that is playing out for business sales. And it is not at all what you would expect. It was a big surprise to me.
We've had 28,000 electronic confidentiality agreements filled out in the last 12 months. In a year.
28,000.
Yep. For each business that comes to market, there's an average of 38 confidentiality agreements being filled out for each business.
Phenomenal. Every business owner wants to know what they can do to increase their business's value. Chris and I discussed 5 key things, but here's 2 that are really actionable for you right now.
Number 1 was consistency of earnings. The second most important element to a purchaser was the ability for the business to be able to run remotely and be fully managed.
Turns out Chris and I had so much in common, and we discussed some interesting personal hobbies, such as ice baths, the benefit of them, and why we're probably a couple of bores at a party when it comes to discussing those things. This is a really great conversation, particularly relevant if you're a business owner and you want to know what it's like to sell your business in New Zealand right now. Chris Small, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you here.
Yeah.
Hey, so our researcher dug up something really interesting that we have as a shared interest in the background. And so CrossFitters, like vegans, like ice bathers, of which we are both one,
Yes.
tend to be known as like chronic bores at parties. And so,
Oh, really?
yeah, well, I think we always like to advocate and extol the virtues of having an ice bath. So have you found yourself on more than one occasion talking about the fact you don't get sick and your immunity is really strong and you've got great resilience because of your ice bathing habit?
Pretty much most weekends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds like me.
I'll be doing it now for, goodness, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone who will listen. That's probably quite bored about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone who's going through a slight health issue or is complaining of a sore back or a sore leg, I do the hot, cold in the morning.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think we probably attribute it to fixing more ailments than it actually does.
Yeah.
But why not? We've got to have some advocates for it, right?
Yeah. And also, I think just mentally after you have that cold feeling in the morning, you feel a bit refreshed, or at least for 5 minutes anyway.
100%.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning feeling quite drowsy, and it was at 6 a.m. So the first thing that I did, just jump straight in the ice bath. And like on days like today, it wasn't too bad. But in the middle of winter, when it's 5 or 6 degrees out of the water,
Yeah.
What temperature do you keep yours at?
Yeah. So 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, okay, right down there. Okay.
Well, actually, that's probably exaggeration. Maybe no. I'm about normal. What do you normal?
Okay.
5 or 6.
4 or 5 or 6, yeah. In that sort of region, I keep it colder in summer than I do in winter.
Yeah, right.
But on days in winter when the air temperature is less than what the ice bath is, it's pretty brutal. It's pretty hard to get in there, and also takes a while to warm up afterwards. Yeah.
It's all good resilience.
It's amazing for you.
Yeah.
So the thing I joke about with it, but I'm actually serious, is that I think I've been 8 years now, the duration that I've been in my relationship with Tina. And I started because I was going to LA, and one of the people I was meeting with was Wim Hof.
Oh, wow.
For those unfamiliar,
Yeah.
he is
He's the guru.
Yeah, he's the godfather of the modern movement of ice bathing. And so I knew that I had to get some resilience around it. So I started cold showering in winter in New Zealand.
Yeah, gotcha.
To go and then spend 3 minutes sitting in an ice bath with Wim Hof in LA. And so I developed that resilience, and then it became a habit. And so
Yeah, it needs to become a habit to keep doing it.
100%. Yeah, we traveled recently 6 weeks out of the country, and coming back after having been in Central America, Mexico being the last spot, super hot. Even the cold water was warm. It was like the first couple were quite painful to get back into the habit of doing it.
Would be.
But my experience is that my immunity is like just far stronger than it's ever been. This is probably the most telling point for me. Tina's been sick this week and I haven't been. And I've had, I think, 2 days in bed with like a head coldy, flu-y kind of thing in 8 years.
Yeah.
And ordinarily I would have had historically a colder winter, basically.
Yeah.
How's your immunity?
My children and my family are going to hate me for this because I'm always, and probably my staff, I haven't had a sick day in maybe 17 or 18 years.
Oh, so I was for ice bathing as well.
Yeah, but it's got better. I just don't get sick.
You're a machine.
I feel bad for saying, because some people are going to watch this and I think, what a dick, especially my children and my wife, because they always say, what are you guys sick for? What are you getting sick? It is what it is. So yeah, I don't get sick. But I do think it's because of those ice baths and I think definitely helps. But yeah, don't get sick.
Yeah. I think there's a mentality around that as well. I have a family member who has a sick mindset. And so
I know people like that who are
always,
some people are always sick.
yeah.
And some people aren't. It's just the way it is. And some people, yeah.
Yes, this is a very close to me family member as well. And so, pretty similar DNA.
Yeah.
And always sick, probably sick days, 15 to 25 a year. So like an unfeasibly large amount.
Yeah.
And so, they dislike it that I don't get ill, but I attribute it to both of those things. The fact that ice bathing, it's recognized as building your brown fat. Brown fat is where your T cells are stored.
Right.
I think I'm getting this right.
Yeah.
And that's where your immunity comes from. It's the immediate body response to an attack from a foreign cell.
Gotcha.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that the mentality around, am I a well person or am I a sick person? You're clearly a well person.
Yeah, well, I just get, being sick's embarrassing. It's sort of a bit of a dent to the ego if you get sick.
Yeah, this is a controversial start to a great conversation.
I know, I feel bad because I just know people are going to see this, but
it is not editing it out, it's staying in.
No, exactly, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's right, I agree.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you're the managing director of ABC Business Sales. And so there's a wide range of conversation we're going to have from the owner, part owner, operator of a business that is the largest transactor of SME business sales in New Zealand.
Great. Yep.
We're going to talk about some data, and we're also going to talk about your journey into that as well. So I think let's start with some data. So Chris, you've done a deep dive into the business transactions that have happened in your company, 483, which you told me off camera is of the 1,200 business sale transactions that happen in New Zealand. So it represents about 40% of the total market. So could you give me some of the highlights of that data, the analysis that you've done, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've actually got some of the key stats in front of me, Josh. And in particular, we've just done a new section on demographics. And what we've got here is 65% of the people selling their business are over the age of 46.
Okay, so that's nearly 2/3 are over 46.
Correct. Whilst 52% of the buyers are under the age of 46.
Okay.
Over 70% of the sellers identify as New Zealand European.
Right.
But more than 40% of the buyers are of Indian, Chinese, or other ethnic backgrounds.
Interesting.
So what we can see there, the first demographic around age, I don't think will surprise anyone. Elder owners are selling to younger owners. We sort of expect that. What surprised me a little bit though is that the ethnicity mix. So we really got New Zealand European owners selling largely to Indian, Chinese, or other ethnic backgrounds. So we actually are seeing a bit of a transfer of wealth within age, but also within ethnicity.
Yeah,
which is quite interesting.
And if I asked you without the data, because you probably don't break it down by individual types of businesses, but could you make a call on what types of companies they were?
Yeah, absolutely. So we generally find that the migrants or the ethnic groups outside of New Zealand European are particularly drawn to businesses where they can put their family in to work alongside them. And that lends itself to hospitality, service stations, bottle stores, superettes. Those type of businesses are very much bought by the new migrants coming to New Zealand or existing migrants in New Zealand.
Yeah, okay. I've noted that as a trend in the different parts of the world that I've lived, say, in the last couple of 5 years.
Yeah.
And personally, I love it because they're experienced retailers that get how to present a store. They understand how to position products and have a discount, a sale thing, like a promotional kind of thing around it. And so my experience largely has been super positive around that. So,
yeah.
And what are some other kind of high notes that you've picked up
from data? So we also looked at why people sold and why people bought. So, as the data says here, the most prominent reason for people selling was retirement, which is no strange. So that equated for 32% of those sellers were retiring. The second most popular reason for selling at 26% was pursuing a new opportunity. Things like being burnt out, poor health, they were sort of in the single digits, 7 or 8%.
Okay.
I thought they may have been a little bit higher. That may well have been wrapped up in retirement. They only got to answer one question. And then reasons for purchasing, also very interesting. 70% of purchases came down to 2 reasons. The most important reason, at 36%, or the most popular, was creating wealth for their family. Yeah. The second most popular reason was buying a business and adding on to an existing business. So that's a trade buyer. So that was 34%. So what that tells me is 1 in 3 transactions that were happening were trade buyers buying their competitors or buying someone in a similar market. Approximately 15% was people buying themselves a job. I thought that might have been a little bit higher, given, we've got a lot of unemployment at the moment. We do have a lot of people who come and see us, but, that's almost double the amount of trade buyers versus the amount of people trying to buy them a job. But, that's between those 3 groups, you've got creating wealth, trade buyers, and buying yourself a job equates for 85% of purchases.
Yeah.
So really, they're the 3 key reasons people are getting into business ownership.
You've been quoted as saying that people during economic difficulties, so hardship times, which we've had for the last couple of years, they're actually more likely to buy a business than when there's not that time. Is that a correct quotation of it?
100%.
Yeah. So tell us why that is.
So I guess if you think about it, and it's just, if someone's, let's say, working at a bank and they're on a reasonably high salary, they get laid off in tough economic times because the bank's not making as much money. They may well get a redundancy package. If that bank's laying staff off, it's highly likely the rest of the sector is not employing people and potentially laying staff off. So they're going to struggle to find another job, but yet they still have commitments to send their kids to school, to pay the mortgage, and to, whether it's an overseas holiday or whatever their priorities are in life, they need a decent income. And so they'll quickly realize, I can't get an income that's paying the $150,000, $250,000 I'm used to. But what I can see is a business over here that if I buy it and invest some capital, potentially borrow some money, that will return me maybe $300,000 or $400,000, and that can keep me at the level I want to be as far as, paying my family expenses. So we definitely see a lot of those types of people come and talk to us.
Yeah. So there's 2 quite distinct and very different groups of people. You've got the fresh to New Zealand migrants,
Yep.
or maybe they've been here for a few years, building up some bank through whatever job they had up until that point in time, wanted to get in self-employment. But then there's those that have been in secure employment,
Yep.
that through whatever reason they haven't. Let's talk about the second group first. I'm interested in that because that makes up a portion of this show's audience. What do you see those people doing wrong when they go into the space of essentially self-employment through buying someone else's business?
There's one really clear theme that stands out, and that's adverse to risk. So you'll find that when you're in a big corporate, you're almost trained to be adverse to risk because you can't do this because you've got compliance here. And so they become very used to saying yes, no, following the rules, which is all fine. But that's, that they'll then come in and they'll look and go, I like the look of this business. But then they'll go, there's a risk there and a risk there. Like, there is no such thing as a non-risk business.
No, that's right. It's inherently risk.
It's inherent, there's inherent risk, but that's why the returns are there. Yeah. And so they'll always look at what can go wrong rather than what can go right. That would be, some of the guys will come to you for another corporate buyer. We call them corporate buyers.
Right.
Fresh out of a corporate, want to buy a business. And they go, they're going to hire an advisor, which is all fine, but they're just going to try and de-risk the business to the extent that there's no risk in the business. But you can't do that, because if there's no risk in the business, that's like a term deposit.
Yeah.
If you want no risk, go and put your money in the bank at 4% with the BNZ or the ANZ or ASB.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a business and potentially get returns of 25 or 30%, but have some risk, then do that.
Yeah.
So that's by far and away the most common thematic I see when people come and talk to us out of corporates.
Interesting. So consequently, I'm guessing what they do is they perhaps miss out on a number of opportunities at the outset.
Whole time.
Yeah. Their spreadsheet is perhaps geared in the wrong way.
Correct.
And therefore they walk away from opportunities which may have otherwise been great.
Yeah.
And so do they...
Just one other point on the other key thing here is their partner will often also be just as risk adverse. So the partner of that person looking at the job, whether it be female or male, prefers them to be on a salary and get paid every Tuesday rather than potentially trying to create more wealth but take on more risk. So they're the two. They're inherently risk adverse, but also their partner often, who may well be looking after the children at home or in slightly different employment, will also be encouraging them, will struggle to take on that extra risk as well. So they're sort of hearing it from, they're inherently thinking that, but also their partner at home prefers to just get paid on a Tuesday and I'll be happy, rather than, oh my goodness, you could make serious wealth here, but you might not get paid every Tuesday. So it's a bit lumpier.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's interesting. This equates to a problem that entrepreneurs and founders have in their business, which is this. So and this is not saying either one of these groups is right nor wrong. So entrepreneurs are not right and corporate people are not wrong.
Yep.
Rather, it's just a trend and a cycle that I've observed on more than one occasion. Entrepreneur gets business to X stage, and that stage is probably 20 to 40 staff, that messy, difficult stage where you have to start to professionalize the company.
Yeah.
And so they think because they've been building this company based upon their own gumption and hard work and making a whole lot of mistakes, they need to bring in a corporate person into the job. And so they go and hire someone from the bank or maybe a lawyer on board.
Seated before.
Yep, seated before many, many times. And so that person may not have the risk propensity, but they perhaps also don't have the entrepreneurial flair and opportunistic approach. They also don't often move as fast as the entrepreneur needs to move. They know that it's a do today or don't do it all.
They want to talk to a board first and get approval.
Yes.
Rather than just doing it and just smelling the opportunity.
Yeah. Those would be the things that I observe. Would you add anything to that list about mistakes that those folk may make when they're inside?
It's just that it's having the confidence to go with your gut feel and your intuition.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had to do it previously, e.g. in a big corporate, you don't really get that opportunity to do it. And if you do make a mistake, it's not really going to cost you any money. Versus in this time around, it's real money, and a real mistake costs money.
Yeah.
And so it's also so add the word accountability in there too. It's proper accountability.
Oh, look, the buck absolutely stops here when you are the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Whereas in a corporate, one of the lessons that I observed others are going through when I worked inside a corporate in my late 20s was that get decisions made on the basis that didn't expose you to being the person that made the decision so that you can cover your ass later on.
Yeah, correct.
Which is just, it does not exist in a small business. The buck stops here, right?
Correct.
Literally, figuratively, literally.
Yeah.
So what about in the situation where that person gets over that risk aversion and they do buy the business? What are the things that they do both well, but also not so well once they own the asset?
That type of person, what I've seen is they're pretty good at thinking of people. So that, I'd say their people management and their care for people is probably a positive. The old fashioned boomer owner has probably less patience and less sensitivity around people and more wants to get shit done.
Yeah.
Whereas these people have come from a corporate environment where you have an HR department, they've probably seen, so they'll be a bit more show a bit more flexibility around working from home and all those sorts of things. So they definitely, I think they probably bring a fresh element to the people management, which is good. Then on the other end, I think they often try and over corporatize or over compliance it. Are very worried about regulatory requirement or making a mistake. Rather than actually going for it. So that's probably good on one hand, which is the people management, which is important because people are essential to every business, but probably miss out some opportunities because they don't necessarily A, have the confidence, or B, have the risk tolerance to go for it.
Yeah. I want to flip this around on you actually, Chris, because there's some bits of your background that I want to just flesh out slightly. So you spent many, many years inside corporates in banking as an M&A person. So you were providing the corporate finance to enable people to do the deals, right? And then you went and worked for a small, medium business, 70 odd staff. I think you said that you have at ABC.
Yeah.
And so what do you think were the mistakes that you made when you came from a corporate background and then bought into and started to take ownership for running a part of a small business, medium business?
Yeah, great question. I will be honest, it took me, I think I was institutionalized because I've been with banks for a long time, probably took me 6 months to really feel comfortable. I was sort of sitting there going, I don't know if this is me, just different types of people around you, there was all sorts of challenges. The office environment was a lot different. Anyway, so that was it. So it took me a while just to adjust to all those things. But I guess the first thing that I tried to do, I wanted everything to be perfect. And so I wasn't, if it wasn't a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 every time, I'd get a little bit angry and frustrated, when really, sometimes a 7 or an 8 was enough to get the job done, move on to the next task. And so I was probably a little bit aggressive in my attitude to get everything done quick. I'm quite an impatient person, so I wanted things done quickly, properly. And I was probably a little bit too gung-ho at the start. Now I'm a lot, people laugh when I say I'm a bit more relaxed because I probably don't think that work. But I think I am, or more than I used to be anyway.
Yes.
And so, and not striving for perfection all the time. Perfection can get in the way of doing a lot of things. If you look at something you're not happy about, leaving it till it's spot on. Where you can miss 5 things over on the left-hand side. So they're probably the key things that that I had to get used to. Also, not having to worry about asking someone for permission. You sort of get so used to sending something up to the boss, he sends it to the next boss, he sends it to the next boss, and you go, yep, you can do that now. Whereas, having that ability just to, actually, I think it's a great idea, let's just do it. But I'm cool with that now, but it probably took a while to get used to that as well.
Yeah. My wife has a great expression that they use amongst her team, so a digital marketing agency, and it's get no, which is good enough to move on.
Yeah.
She suffers from perfectionism herself.
Yeah.
In the world of kind of design, one of the questions that she has for people, which I'm sure she won't mind me sharing, is how do you know when you're finished? This is very much relates to designing. Yeah. So, the great artists say that I know that this work is complete, not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing more to remove.
Yeah.
Which is a very minimalist kind of.
Yeah, good. I like that.
I want to ask something directly to you here, Chris. You get that there's a tension that exists internally with you. On the one hand, you want to achieve perfection or get as close as you possibly can, yet you're very impatient.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I get so frustrated the whole time.
Did you realize this about yourself? You've got this massive amount of conflict that's happening internally?
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe I'm definitely impatient. So that's an absolute, it's guaranteed. Maybe perfection was just at the start where I was just used to things being done well, but I'm less worried about perfection now. So yeah, I've definitely, if anything's given way, it's been the perfection side.
Right.
The impatience and wanting to move at speed
is
sort of, it's the domineer inside now.
So you had a successful commercial corporate career, and you decided to leave the safe confines of that kind of world. What drove you to do it? And then how was the opportunity presented and how did it play out?
Yeah, no, great question. So, and I think it was mentioned in this report here, creating wealth was definitely the driver. So when you're in a big corporate, yep, you're in your salary, but you can work a long time. And at the end of that career, you don't have anything to fall back on. You
stop work and the income stops.
You stop work, the income stops, you have a handshake and you might get a wristwatch or a slap on the back if you've done particularly well.
Do they still do the wristwatch?
No.
I think they've got me to a Timex.
Exactly, so it's a slap on the back.
Yeah.
So that played out, I saw that quite early, I guess, and thought, okay, loved banking, and ANZ and ASB were both fabulous places to work for, great connections, great networks, but quickly realised it wasn't necessarily going to create wealth for me. And there's a couple of people who make serious wealth in the bank. One's the CEO, and probably maybe the next 8 or 10 people who report that. It's quite a hard road to get there, and so you don't necessarily know if you're going to make that journey or not. So I thought, right, there's got to be another way. And so given I was in the corporate commercial sector, I was always looking at all these great businesses. You'd look at their P&Ls and you go, goodness, these guys or girls are making, creating serious wealth. So I want to be a part of that. So really it was just waiting till the right time happened, till the right opportunity. Guy called Steve Smith, who started ABC Business Sales. He started 39 years ago, been doing 39 years. So he's one of the pioneers in business sales.
Wow.
Came and approached me, and he suggested that, he'd actually just turned 60. And I think that obviously set something off in him. And he said, look, would you be interested in potentially a succession plan type scenario? And he wasn't in a hurry to leave straight away, but he just wanted to get someone in there for when he was ready. And he's a shrewd operator, Steve. So we got on board. We, like anything, took a while to negotiate, what we're going to pay for the shares and everything. He's a business guy, I'm a business guy. So, we got there in the end. And then joined, and that was really the genesis. And I was a bit 50-50 on it because I was really enjoying ASB where I was at the time. I spoke to a guy called Stefan Lipionka, who's a good entrepreneur. He started it from Charlie's. So he was a guy bounced things off. We used to go on the old holiday to Taupo together. Anyway, and I said to him, I'm 50-50 on where I should go for this. He goes, well, you've always told me, you wanted to create wealth while owning your own business. He goes, you love doing M&A, business sales. He goes, is there a better opportunity that will ever come? And I went, actually, you're right, because the timing wasn't quite right. Still had young children, it was a bit risky. And then they just once I got that into my head, I went, actually, he's right. What am I waiting for? You can't ever pick the perfect timing. So I went for it. So that was probably the push I needed from Stefan. And he always basically said, bankers are a bunch of pufters, that's not real business. Real business is going out there, making something, doing something, making decisions. In a bank, you're very protected. You're on a salary, it's not real business.
Yeah.
But he was just having me on.
But he was goading you. He was probably making the decision that you perhaps on intrinsically deep inside you knew that you needed to make.
Yeah,
Someone to,
correct.
do the competitive thing, call you out on something.
Yeah, so it was a kick I needed,
Mm.
and really pleased. So I managed to have to do a bit since then, so it's been good.
Yeah. So you and I both know that succession in a business, the ability for you to distance yourself from the asset and have someone come in and successfully run that asset alongside you, whatever it might be, is one of the critical aspects to get right as a founder owner.
Yeah.
So what did Steve do to set you up for success?
Steve's pretty old fashioned. He's obviously going to hear this, so be careful. But he, Steve's a baby boomer. He didn't really do much. So he brought me in.
Yeah.
And I had an office over there, and he was always there to ask questions. He still is now. So he's chairman of ABC, and every now and again, we'll get on the phone and have a chat if something a bit of cheese happening or something like him come across, and he's great. He was probably more there. Look, you go and find your way, but I'm absolutely here. I'm absolutely here for you if you need to ask a question. He's certainly not in there with a training regime and a plan. His plan was just to bring me on board, and that sort of was the plan.
Right.
And then we just went from there. But he would also stop me or pull me aside if I was going down the wrong direction, or which he thought was perceived the wrong direction. We'd have a bit of a debate, maybe even an argument about whether we should or shouldn't go down a particular path. So that was probably the way he approached it.
Yeah. I wonder if it's your corporate background that made you think perhaps the orientation, the preparation,
correct,
been training.
Yeah.
Whereas interestingly, what I would make that mean, just as a counter view, is that Steve just got the hell out of your way.
He did.
And when he saw you doing things wrong, he grabbed you by the ear and you had a conversation about it. And I love the fact that you had an argument about that point, because I think it was Einstein, it's attributed to him. He said that if there's two of us in a room and we both have the same opinion, there may as well only be one.
Yeah.
And so if you guys were having, proper arguments about things, it's a good thing, provided you can play the ball, not the man, so to speak, so that you're discussing the issue and it doesn't become personal.
Yeah, no, we never make it personal. It's all about business. Do you know what? Thinking back on that, that's a really, really good point, Josh. I think you're right. That's exactly what he did. And to the extent now, we just finished a management buyout 12 months ago. So he moved from CEO to chairman now, so he's gone, essentially. And he's exactly that now. I said to him the other day, I said, geez, I haven't seen you in 7 or 8 months. I said, what have you been doing? He goes, mate, I'm just staying out of your way. You and James, my business partner, we run ABC, and that's what he's doing. And so he's a wise guy. So he's here. When I look back, you're exactly right. That's what he did.
Yeah. So we're Gen Xers, I'm guessing. You talk about baby boomers, so you're in that demographic, and so we're Gen Xers.
Exactly.
And so you tend to generationally have similar kinds of experience, high school, parenting through the 70s and the
you didn't get free education at university.
Right.
They did.
Yeah. That was,
They got to buy a house for 50 grand.
Yes.
Didn't.
Yes. We were also, I'm not sure what you were like, but latchkey kids, which is what the Americans call us, which is that we'd come home from school, the house would be empty, we'd make a sandwich, we'd watch television, we'd go across to play in the neighbour's yard, and we'd...
Exactly what I do.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so, if you stepped out of line, you got a clip around the ear, and you'd have to work hard for your Christmas present, kind of thing. That was the trade-off for being a part of the family. And that was just the way that we were parented.
Yeah.
And so... the question that I've got for you is now around demographics in your team, because I'm guessing you've got some along with the two folk, you've got some Gen Xers like us, you've got some Ys, and you've probably got some Zs that are coming through as a younger, newer generation.
I've got someone in their 80s in our Christchurch team, Sally, who's wonderful, and then I've got someone who's 22, 23.
Yeah, wow.
Both doing business broking roles, so it's a 60-year gap, and we've got everything in between, and we've got pretty much most ethnicities in between as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave the ethnicity thing over there, because that's a risky conversation, but a demographic one is far less, like an age demographic thing is far less risky. So, and I'm going to ask you to generalize here.
Yeah. No problem.
But what do you reckon is the big differences between ourish demographic, which is, coming up towards the boomers are exiting the workforce now, if they haven't already done so. And so it's our demographic that's kind of running the things these days. So Gen Y sits directly behind us, millennials as they're also known as, and then the Zs are those in their late teens into their late 20s is around about the split between those. What do you see as the big differences between those generations?
Goodness, start with the boomers, who are obviously older than us. So Look, they're hard workers. They roll your sleeves up, prefer to do it themselves, from what I can see. Probably not great adopters to change necessarily, but very happy to roll up their sleeves. Good, genuine people. Probably get frustrated when they see people not with a similar work ethic to themselves, and that frustrates them because that's how you should be doing things. But overall, they're very easy to get on with, and probably not too dissimilar to where we've come from.
Yeah.
So that would be my take on those people. Don't know if you want any comments about us, e.g.
Just add to what I've thrown in about the how we were raised.
Yeah, so
what are they like in the workforce now?
Yeah, so look, again, I don't really have any issues there. They're well grounded generally. Again, I would say, I think work ethic to me feels like a bit of a continuum. Like, e.g., the boomers worked pretty hard. Not necessarily now and then. We've probably had things a little bit easier, so our work ethic's not quite as strong as theirs was. We're probably a bit happier to go on a boat or play a game of golf rather than stay at home and do the garden. They're probably quite keen to be in the garden doing the job. I guess where we have changed from the boomers, I don't know about yourself, Josh, but you don't look like a handyman, but I'm terrible with a hammer.
Terrible.
Yes, so am I, because
I could do it. I could do it.
Yeah,
but I choose now to not do it.
Same.
I'd rather get a specialist in to do it.
Yeah. So the generation above us definitely did it themselves.
So yourself.
So I think that's where we've lost the art to be able to put a barbecue together, to be able to build a shed. I can't do that. Say myself. I'm like you. I get a specialist. So I think that's it. And that transfers into work. We might well hand out tasks to people who are going to help us, whereas the generation above thinks to do it themselves potentially. Then the next generation down, tough for them. I mean, they've been brought up in the COVID age. I think they think working from home is a good thing. I'm a bit old school like that. I still think, working from the office has its benefits. And it's just a real generalization, but, sometimes you would, they're just looking for different things from work. I guess they're looking for it to be a happy, nice place when sometimes that's not life. Not everything is a straight line, and not everything is, perfect on a daily basis. Sometimes you have conflict. Sometimes you have different ways of doing things that you might not agree with, and that's just, sometimes you just need to suck that up. And I think some of the next generation aren't really of that mindset that they should have to suck. If they believe strongly in something, they think, well, sorry, we think it should be this way. Whilst our generation, we just suck it up because at home you had to suck it up.
Yeah.
So I think there's a few elements of that. And when it comes to providing constructive criticism, I've never had any problems with our generation or the generation above, being the boomers, but sometimes the younger generation aren't so receptive to when you give them constructive criticism, how they might get better. They take that as a bit of a personal insult, which is clearly not. To your point, you just want to play the ball, not the man. You just want to say, this is how you can get better. But I think there's a real opportunity for that age group, which I say to some of the young ones at our work. If you can be a really hard worker, really into showing lots of effort and enthusiasm, taking constructive criticism on board, you'll be a star, because the rest of your generation maybe is not comfortable with it. This is a real generalization. There's lots of awesome people in that generation who are great workers as well. It's just what I've seen across different aspects of life, I guess, in work and outside of work.
I get it. So without making any assumptions, in the world of business broking, give us a sense of the average transaction and the range that you tend to specialise in.
Yeah, so we in our report, we put the average business price for a business in New Zealand. So currently that's approximately $800,000.
Okay.
And we are anywhere from literally $50,000 up to $10 million. So that would be 95%, probably 98% of our transactions.
Classic SME kind of space.
Oh, it's absolute SME business.
Yeah. Okay. What makes someone succeed as a business broker?
Great question. So there's a person who works for us, and I will name her and shame because she's so good. So a lady called Linda Harley. This is all public information. She's won New Zealand Broker of the Year 4 out of the last 5 years.
Wow. Is she rigging the competition?
Sorry?
Is she rigging the competition?
No, she's not. She is just very good at what she does. And so that's a good person to think about. So Linda specialises in childcare. She's based in Tauranga. She is awesome on process and consistency. So she does the same thing week in, week out. She knows all her data really well. She knows how many phone calls it takes to get an appraisal or a meeting, how many appraisals she needs to do to get a new listing, how many listings she needs to do to get a sale. She's just very diligent, follows a process, awesome customer service, and a real expert in what she does, which is childcare sales. Everyone in the industry knows her. She's very good at what she does, and she does more deals than anyone else. So I think on that, so that's one way of doing it. So she is by her own, she's not an extrovert, she's probably more an introvert. Then you can have on the other side, you've got the extroverts who are really good people, you know, a people person, sorry. They're good at attracting people, great at prospecting, but less so on the detail. But we've got some really successful people who do very well with that skill set as well. So I guess what I'm saying is all skill sets can potentially be very good, but you've got to, there's no getting away from the hard work, and there's no getting away from sort of following a bit of a process and some consistency. So where it's consistency in how you prospect and constantly talking to people, or consistency in how your processes work and what you do, but it's got to be consistent. A consistent way of doing things will get you a good result.
Yeah. This is interesting, and it's a teaching moment which I drop in from time to time. I work with B2B companies. I don't really work with B2C.
Yep.
And so B2B means that there is a deal that will get done at a certain point in time, and you'll have AA deals. That's not a better quality client. It's just a bigger client that's going to give you more money. B deals and C deals, and you've got to aggregate those to work out how many of each that you need to hit the number that you want to hit over the year.
Absolutely what our guys do.
Cool. Yeah. And then you back that back to go, well, so for me to get, let's call it, 10 A deals, just for example, I know that I need to submit 20 proposals because I win 1 and 2. To get 20 proposals, I need to have 40 sales meetings, right? And to get those, I need to make 80 calls. Right?
Exactly what Linda Harley does.
Okay.
And that's what we try this. We've got some external trainers using, that's exactly how we operate.
Yeah.
So it's calls and connections to get appraisals. Appraisals lead to a listing, and listing to a sales, and there's ratios for all those. And if you follow that process, you really can't go wrong. But you'd be amazed how many people don't follow the process and deviate outside of it.
Yeah, look, I read a book when I very first started working in a sales-oriented environment, which I was an accountant by trade, and then decided to give this thing a go because of the income became dependent upon my success rather than being stuck to a band, which is where accounting was going for me.
You sound too much like me. I'm an ex-accountant as well before I went to banking.
Yeah, no, I know that. It's an interesting kind of crossover. Yeah, it's the ice bath thing that's
it's crazy. Yeah.
Have you read this book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling, by a guy called Frank Beckger?
No.
1930s. It was given to me when I first started doing the selling thing. And what Frank did is he was an ex-professional baseball player in the United States in the 1930s during the post-Depression, right in the Depression era, selling life insurance. So selling a perceived luxury new product that people didn't know about up until that point in time. And he basically just made it a data play. It was completely a data play. You know, how many first meetings do I have that lead to a second meeting? How many of those do I close deals at? How many calls do we need to make, et cetera? It's exactly what we just talked about. And so what I've found with people over time is that, and I work with founders and owners of companies to help them build value in that asset, is that some folk get it because they're methodical, they're process-oriented, and they just kind of go, I can understand this. Others go, yeah, but there's magic in what I do. I'm like,
we call them mavericks.
Yeah. I'm like, show me the magic. How's that worked out for you? Because you've come to me to help you resolve this lumpy kind of sales that you tend to have over time.
What you find, we've got a few of those. I've got a few of those. We go, oh, no, it's not for me. And so when you really boil it down to, so how do you work? And they actually do it. So they don't think they do it,
right?
But they actually do make the calls. You know, oh, no, it's cool. You know, I'll call them. So you're networking constantly. Oh, yeah. It's just if you call it a different name.
Yes.
Like if you call it networking instead of making calls, then they do it. Because it's making calls. I don't make calls, but they're always networking. You know, so I am, but you're right. You can't not follow a process and be successful. I don't think. You might get lucky for a couple of years, but eventually it probably fades away.
Yes. So work the numbers, be methodical and detailed, understand your process, and then probably improve your process regularly, the points that matter. And the other thing that you said about Linda is, and this is another crossover with successful company owners, is niching. She's niched the hell out of something, and she's no doubt known in New Zealand for being the childcare person. Have you spoken to Linda is probably what people say. And so I find great resistance from founders around niching because they're like, but I'm going to close off the opportunities to myself. I'm going to restrict myself. And I'm like, well, let's work out how big that niche is.
The addressable market, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then go, is that a reasonable thing for you to get 10, 20, 50%, whatever the thing might be, the possibility for you to achieve. And then once you understand that, you're like, oh, actually, there's actually a really good business for me to have in there.
Yeah.
And so my wife's got a great expression, which is that if we're talking to everyone, we're talking to no one.
Yeah.
Because unless you niche, you have to talk to everybody.
Correct. So it's a great point. So within our business, within ABC, we encourage everyone to be a specialist or have a niche.
Yeah.
So we have an aged care team. What do? All they do is sell aged care. Very good. We have a childcare team. We have people who specialise in transport and logistics. We've got one chap in our team. He's sold over 200 service stations. All he does is sell service stations across New Zealand. We have a guy who's sold over 200 bottle stores. All he does is sell bottle stores. So we're all about specialisation. I guess that's what, when you've got a bit of scale, because we've got over 60 salespeople, they've got real specialists. And when we look at our top 10, and top 10 is done by gross earnings, 60 or 70% of those top 10 are absolute specialists. And that's I couldn't be stronger on that point, that specialisation is really important to success, especially in our industry.
So I'm a business owner. And I've got a business that's turning over, I'm going to make a number up, $5 million. Yeah. And I would be interested in selling, and I'll come and talk to Chris or one of his team.
Yep.
What does an engagement look like, and what would I expect to experience and pay? So let's talk about those one at a time. So what is a typical sales process and engagement?
Yeah, so look, let's just say that the lead comes into myself, and from an accountant going, look, Chris, I've got a guy who wants to sell his business. He's in this. First thing I ask is what sector he's in and what's your location. So let's just say it's very easy. So you say it's in Auckland, and he is in wholesale distribution.
I'm in wholesale distribution, $5 million a year.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll introduce. We've got a number of people at work. So I'll look at the personality, but also the sector, and I'll probably I'll make up a name. Actually, won't make a name. I'll say Darren. Darren, he specialises in that sector, so I'll introduce him to Darren. So I'd make the connection. Darren would then have an engagement. He'd probably either go to, would you like me to come on site? Or often if it's highly confidential, they might come into our office. At that point, Darren has an engagement with him. He talks about, we really want to understand the motivation. Why do you want to sell? Why is it, is it health? Is it retirement? Is it you've had a guts full? Your wife wants to spend more time or less time, whatever it is. Is it a shareholder's dispute? So we really understand the motivation. At that point in time, he will then say, look, because we have a regulatory requirement, before we sell any business, we must do an appraisal. It's a requirement from the REA, who governs all business brokers in New Zealand. So at that point in time, he'll go, look, we need to give you an appraisal, which is a current market valuation for your business. And it can be free of charge. Sometimes it can be depending on how much work is involved. Sometimes it can be an engagement which costs some money. So we'll get the meeting. Or say you need to go away and get me this type of information, which be around financials, leases, org structure, everything that's required. We will then put together that document for the person. So based on what we know today, our experience, our data, comparable sales, here's where we see value in the current market. We'll also put in that document our terms and conditions, including price, what type of marketing we'll do, and how we will take it to market. Whether it's sometimes business owners want a highly confidential engagement where no one knows. We can deliver that service. Sometimes they're happy to declare the name of the business. There's pros and cons for all those possibilities. So we will get the information, put it together, show them, then present that appraisal, go, here's the T's and C's, terms and conditions, here's how we take it to market, and here's the value we think we're going to get based on the data. They will then like that or not like that. So it's probably 2 interactions, and then when they're ready, they say, yep, no, we like you guys. We'll then list the business, and it's a document that needs to be signed, has all our T's and C's, and then we get some more information. We put what's called an information memorandum together, and then we take it to market. So highly well, that's the process.
Yeah. Hey, legend. Thanks for your ears. I really appreciate you listening to the show. Everything improves through feedback. I'd be really grateful if you could head to my website, joshcomrie.com, just click on the podcast link and fill out a 2-minute survey, which will give me the insights around the things that you're enjoying about the show and where you would like us to go more into the future. It'll take less than 2 minutes. I'd be really grateful. And you'll also receive some free resources should you share your email address with us. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the show. What does taking it to market look like?
So, great question. So, again, depending on the type of business, the size, and what the vendor wants, so the business owner, we can do a full marketing campaign, which is social media, Trade Me, our website, trade publications. So put it in lots of places where we think the next purchase is going to be. So if it's a wholesale distribution, it may well be we think it's a person aged between 35 and 55 because it's young, it's fashion, fashion products. It may well be a female we think might be better suited to that business. And we'll work out those demographics and then put the business, the information about this in those areas where we think those people will be looking. And then if they do like to look at it, we've got called digital ECA, so an electronic confidentiality agreement, which they can fill in online. Once they fill that in, we can then give them more information about the business. Once they read that and they like it, then we can then organise a meeting with the vendor. They can go and look at the premises and get more information. But that's the sort of first sort of cut, I guess.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And so...
Sorry, that was one way. So that's taking it to market. Then another way, you may well have business owners go, look, we don't really want anyone to know. Can you put together a list of 30 competitors or people you think are highly likely to buy? It might be private equity, professional investors, and we may just go and tap 30 people on the shoulder. That's another way we may sell it. So it's really up to the vendor, but we will be very honest around that. That might make you feel more comfortable from a confidentiality perspective, but you're actually not going to reach everyone. And the way you optimize price is by getting more people to the table, a competitive environment, what we call a multi-offer situation, where you've got to put your best foot forward. If it's just a bilateral deal, so one-on-one, it's harder to optimize price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I talk about that in my upcoming book, Two Commas. One of the most important factors in achieving an optimal outcome as the vendor is having deal tension or perceived deal tension. And that's one of the benefits that working with a broker would bring to the table, is that you can kind of have that multiple real or perceived kind of situation. The other that I talk about as well, curious on your thoughts on this, Chris, is I talk about timing. And our research dug up that you talk about timing quite a lot as being another critical factor in taking a business out to market. So when you talk about timing, what is it that you mean about the importance of it?
There's two things. You've got personal timing, so I call that life timing, and then you've got business conditions timing. So is the timing right for you personally to sell, but also what are the conditions like in the market to sell? So right here and now, as per our most recent report, the market has never had more purchasers looking for businesses in history.
Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So let's just pause on that, because that's a really fascinating thing for people to consider, because there's a lot of owners. About 50% of our audience is people that own a company. So what you're saying, just to be clear, is that if you've got the right business, now could be possibly the best time in history to consider selling that business. Is that too long a bow for me to draw?
No, that's a fact.
That's a fact.
And I'll go on to, so I can talk about this topic all day, but I love it. So we've just, up to September of this year, we've had 28,000 electronic confidentiality agreements filled out in the last 12 months in a year.
28,000.
Yep. 2 years ago, we had 14,000.
Okay, wow.
So
doubled.
It's doubled. So and to the extent we can work out at the moment, because you just work out the amount of listings you've got divided by, the amount of confidentiality agreements divided by the amount of listings. At the moment, for each business that comes to market, there's an average of 38 confidentiality agreements being filled out for each business.
Phenomenal.
2 years ago, it was 19.
Yeah, wow.
And it's about like, you think about it like an open home. 2 years today, you can have 38 people looking through your house. 2 years ago, you had 19. And obviously it's an average. So some businesses have 100 ECAs, some have 10, but that's the average. And that's really is, makes it really clear to why now's a really optimal time. We were getting pushed. So our listings are probably 5% down. So you've got demand going like that, listings going like that. So sellers are in a great position. But where sellers are confused or conflicted at the moment, their earnings aren't necessarily
for the last couple of years.
Right? And we all know, one way of working out a business value, and especially in the SME market, the most common way is a multiple times earnings. So your earnings may well be down. So you're going, oh, I'm not selling. Got to get the earnings up, but the market's great. And can I promise that in 2 years' time we've got so many buyers? Can't promise it. Could be. So that's really, really conflicted. And I get that. They'll come and see us and go, this is my third worst earnings year ever. Why would I sell now? Yeah. But then I go back, well, where are you in life? Do you want to retire? Or do you want to play golf? What's your health like? You can't always pick that optimal time. Yeah. To turn 65 and have an awesome mark and everything's lined up, you've got general managers in place. It's very hard to get all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle lined up at once. So sometimes if it's just 80% good, maybe that's a good time to sell rather than waiting for 100%.
You talked about one of the methods of valuing the business is on the price times the earnings, kind of ratio, previous profitability. What are the other methods?
Look, you can go down the discounting cash flow method. I mean, but I'm not a promoter of that. And in SME business, that's not really relevant. That's infrastructure businesses. That's something with really certain cash flows.
Sorry, can you just explain what the DCF is to people that don't know?
Well, it's net present value of some fixed future cash flows. And SME business is not about fixed future cash flows. I see accountants produce valuations and it's got a discounted cash flow in a SME business. Well, that's quite frankly, that's rubbish.
It's poppycock.
Yeah, it is. But you try and tell them that. And then you can have asset accumulation value, so where people will value business on the assets. So it may well be an example of this is transport and logistics. They may have a whole heap of trucks,
right?
And they go, well, value of my trucks are $1 million. I want $1 million. Again, slightly flawed. You talk to any banker. Well, I come from a banking background. It's all about cash flow generation. So you can have all the assets in the world, but if you're making a loss each year, well, those assets aren't actually generating income. Hence, their value is not what you perceive as market value. It might be replacement value, but it's not market value for a business. So really, we always get drawn back to. It's quite simple, but we really always do get drawn back to a multiple times earnings. And there's lots of ways you can cut it. You can. We talk about future maintainable earnings. Now, that could be an average of the last 5 years, or you could apportion a higher amount to the most recent year because that's more relevant. There's all sorts of ways you can cut it. And then the multiple, again, is a whole feast of things that feed into a multiple too, around risk and so forth, and sector, location, history.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few dynamic elements going into those two numbers. So that's where we see when we look at comparable sales, which we've got more data than anyone when it comes to comparable sales. We can really go, look, here's 4 businesses that have sold at a very similar rate or have got similar characteristics to your business. They've all sold between 3 to 3.5 times. So we think it's pretty likely you fit into that band.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair methodology, assuming you understand what those businesses look like compared to that business.
One of the things that is a bugbear of mine in selling a business, and it's something that I work with people to move away from this problem, especially if they're a high growth business, is that if you're buying a business from me, you're not buying last year's results, you're buying the future year's results.
Correct.
Now, nobody's got a crystal ball, but let's say I've been investing for growth and I've been achieving 50% growth for the last 4 or 5 years, then you should probably pretty logically say that I'm going to grow another 50% on top of that into the following year. And so, ergo, the numbers of the business that you're buying are future earnings, right?
Yeah.
And so,
future maintainable earnings, we call it. Yeah.
Yes. And so, how often is that a conversation that you have with?
I've got a very strong opinion on this, and it might differ to yours.
Please, let's have it.
We have these conversations, and often a forecast from the vendor will be a bit of a hockey stick.
I work in tech, so it's almost every graph that I see is a hockey stick.
And I'm actually involved in a situation where I'm in an advisory role where I'm on someone who's purchasing the business, and the business has been going pretty flat. Let's say 300K for the last 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden
profit.
Profit. All of a sudden it's going to move to 600, 700. And I said, under new ownership. So this is you. And I said, my exec, and I believe it, said, why should my client pay for the growth he's going to generate?
Mm-hmm.
So even to your point in tech, why should Mr. Smith pay for growth that hasn't been proven?
Mm-hmm.
I know you say 50%, but it's not proven. Mm-hmm. And I've just been around long enough, as you have, to know it may not continue like that. So I'm a big believer in purchasers shouldn't pay for growth that's not proven. If there's a robust plan and there's a contract in place, or it's highly likely, like there are certain instances where that growth is highly likely to happen, but you can structure for that via an earn-out or via deferred payment. But paying for growth that's not actually happened yet, I don't believe a purchaser should have to do that. But if the vendor strongly believes it's going to happen, we'll put a deferred payment in there. So if that EBITDA is achieved, well then the vendor gets extra money. But if it's not achieved, then they don't. But then you have the vendor saying, "But I'm not in control of the company any longer, so that's not my problem." We have these debates every day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you follow them. But I guess my starting point is, why should a purchaser have to pay for growth that you haven't achieved yet and will happen under their ownership? Surely that's their money because they've earned it. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. In the instance that you were discussing, let's say 300K, and if it hadn't moved from that for 3 to 5 years, then someone expecting you to double that or quadruple that under the new ownership and then pay for that, that's complete, again, poppycock.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You'd be surprised. The exact words, the person, if they're listening, will know who they are. The exact words they used were, but we've just assumed that this is going to happen. So whether it's you who owns it or my guy owns it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, we've got these assumptions around margin uplift and new clients. And so that's just what the business is worth.
Yeah, well, keep the business, prove it, and then go and sell it.
Exactly what I said.
Yeah, that's what I'd say as well.
I said, mate, you keep it. Show us in a year's time you've done it, then they'll pay the extra money.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. The instance I'm referring to is if someone's had the consistent growth over time. So no hockey stick. I've never liked hockey.
Yeah.
I love being an investor in it, but
I know what you're saying, but even then I don't think someone history, you hear it on all the ads, don't you? You can't trust history as a predictor of future profits. So even then I wouldn't. It's going to be really robust. So if it's contractual revenue, e.g. you've got recurring revenue, it's already built in.
Yeah.
Well, that's different. You'd be silly not to acknowledge that that's regular revenue. But if you're talking about customers you don't have today, but just because you've gained 20 customers each year historically, I think that's the money of the new owner. Just my thoughts.
It's down to them to work it out between themselves and how much the new owner really wants to have that asset.
Yeah, correct. Oh no, exactly. Yeah, spot on.
So let's just double back around for a second here. So I want to sell my business. What would you charge me to do that?
So the way we work at ABC is it's all commission based. So it's risk and reward. And it's depends on the size of the business. We're like a tiered model, but our starting commission rate is in the 9%. 9%. Yep. And that's
for a smaller business.
That's for a small. So anything under $1 million would be a starting point. Then we also have a minimum fee. So that's our starting point. But obviously, as businesses get bigger, we certainly don't charge that for bigger business. It gets tiered as it goes up. So that's probably about as much as I can divulge today. But I guess the key thing is we're risk and reward. So we only get paid if we sell the business. So if the vendor isn't happy with the fee, they don't sell the business and we don't get paid. So we generally don't have any complaints because they know what they're up for when they sell the business. They usually build in our fee when they're selling the business. So right, I'm going to sell it for a certain amount of money plus the fee. That's what I'll get in hand after the transaction.
Very much akin to the real estate agent model.
Exactly.
Things carry real estate agent's ticket as well. Is that right?
Correct. We do. Yeah. So and we're governed by the REA, real estate agency association, whatever they're called.
Yes.
Yeah. So absolutely.
So I'm guessing also like real estate, when you get a valuation for your home, what you end up with is a range and then like a median.
Yep.
Is that the way you do? Cool.
Yep. So when we do an appraisal, which I referred to before, valuation, we give a range for where we think the business will be valued in the current market, and it's usually a range.
Got it.
Yep.
So as a business owner, what are the things that I can do to make sure that I sit at the top end of that range or even get a upper quartile or top 10% price point for my business?
Great question. We just recently, about 7 or 8 months ago, did a survey because the people who really know this are the purchasers. So we did a survey and we put about 15 points there in regards to what are the key things a purchaser is looking for in a business. Number one was consistency of earnings. So, any purchaser, so if you've had a business for the last 4 or 5 years and it's doing $500,000 in profit every year within 5 or 10% variance, that really gets purchasers excited. They feel really comfortable. This business is highly likely to continue to deliver that type of profitability because it's been doing that for the last 5 years. If that same business was going 700, 100, 600, 50, there would be less of a premium. Let's say the average was the same as the other business, but the other one was consistent, the other one was up and down. The other business with consistency would get an absolute premium over the other one. That's just the risk, that de-risks a potential purchaser. The second most important element to a purchaser was, and this won't surprise anyone, was the ability for the business to be able to run remotely and be fully managed. So that is, when they buy the business, they're not dependent. The business is not completely dependent on the current owner. It's got a general manager in place. And that person who's buying the business, I think there's 2 elements here. First of all, it de-risks it, so the owner's not holding all the relationships and all the key IP of the business. So when they buy it and that person leaves, they're not exposed. But second to that, what we've noticed is a lot of New Zealanders are very happy to not necessarily have to go to work every day. A lot of people like the idea of owning a business remotely and not having to necessarily work 9 to 5. It's almost like a passive investment with a bit of interaction. So it was point number 2. Point number 3, the purchasers are looking for is repeat or recurring revenue. So repeat business. So it doesn't have to be recurring revenue necessarily like Xero, for example, which, they have literally millions of people paying them a certain monthly amount. That's great. It's a SaaS model. But even if it's a business that has a higher proportion of repeat business, e.g., when you turn up and buy this company, 60 to 70% of your current customers have been customers for more than a year and are likely to continue to be customers unless you really bugger it up. So they'll give you the first chance. So even if you buy a cafe, if 70% of the people who go to your cafe have been doing it for a long period of time, they'll continue to do it unless you bugger it up. So that, again, de-risks the investment for the new purchaser. The 4th priority was growth prospects. So what we often, when we talk to business owners, is leave something on the table for the next person. If you've exhausted every possible growth possibility for this company, it's going to be hard for the next person to get excited to want to buy it. And so what an example might be, you've got a great business in the North Island, leave the South Island for the next person. Let them go to the South Island. But have a tangible growth prospect. You can give them a plan. So go, here's a plan. We haven't implemented it yet, but it's real and it's tangible. This is how you're going to go about it. You'll get a premium for your business if you have something like that. And then the last one, because we asked them to tick 5, and these are the 5 most popular elements that purchasers are looking for, is barriers to entry. Whether it be IP, something unique about your business that's very hard to copy. Let's be honest, in SME business, you're not going to have a business that's impossible to, it's not necessarily replicate, but you're going to have competitors. You're never going to be big enough to be like a Xero or Amazon, where you don't necessarily have a competitor, or Tesla. Even they've got competitors. So you've got to accept competition, but it's just understanding what are the barriers to entering that business. And I guess the more barriers there are, the better, whether it be technical expertise, IP, or just the fact you've been in a particular location for a period of time.
Got it.
So they were the 5. So if you inverse it, that's what purchasers are looking for.
Yes.
So if that's what purchasers are looking for, that's what business owners should be looking to add to their business, because that's what they want.
I love a listicle. I'm going to run back through that for clarity's sakes. So the most important thing to acquirers, therefore for business owners to build into their business, is consistency of earnings, independence of the business from themselves. So they have a management team or similar in there.
Not dependent on the business owner, because when that person sells, they've gone.
Yeah, exactly. Recurring revenue of some way, shape or form.
Or repeat business.
Yes. Got it. Prospect for growth. So proven and or possible future growth. So leaving on the table. Yep. Got it. And also an industry that has some ability to have a moat, a barrier to entry is another way to look at that.
And look, even you could say, well, how could a cafe possibly have a moat? Well, it might be on a particular location and there's no other hospitality venues, and it's unlikely they'll be able to build. That's a moat of sorts. Everyone can have a moat. Or you've got a particular chef that is very hard to replicate. Because obviously hospitality probably has the least moats around. It's low barriers to entry. But every business can have a moat of some description.
I'm a shareholder in a large commercial industrial property development in East Tamaki, and it has a cafe that's on site there, and the facility is very new. It's a $100 million facility. And so there's, I think, about 300 staff that sit around the different buildings that are tenants in there. And it's a beautiful facility. In that particular neck of the woods, you've got people that are driving in from the suburbs to come in to the city or to that part of the world to work. But also every other cafe, of which there's 3 within a 3 or 4 kilometre radius. So there's not many for a starter. Is that they're all like what I call a train station cafe. You get your thing, you push it along, you get your pie and your sausage roll, whereas this sells delicious salads and interesting creations they make, and they've got a moat because they're doing something which is what people now demand from a cafe, as opposed to pie and chips, which is very historic for the world. So that's the way that they've done it. So here's a question for you. Many founders wrestle between the notion of building a business which enables them to leave or create a legacy, and the ability to take a payout from the thing that they've built over time. That's a bit of a tension that exists. How do people manage that? How do you help them work through that?
I'll be honest with that, Josh. Majority of the people we see have given that notion of legacy behind and just want to pay out. In all honesty,
How come?
I think when they come and see us, they made the decision to sell.
Right.
They really have. Like, that's what we do. We're not like an advisory. We're not going, let's hold on for 12. We sometimes might say, but really they come to see us, they want to sell. That's why they've come to see us. So I think that period of time, they've sort of realized the legacy. So they probably tried their kids, maybe tried their best friends. They don't want to buy or acquire. So I think they've given that notion of legacy away and they really just want to optimize the money and walk away. That would be my take, because the amount of times you first meet a person when you're selling, they go, look, I want the right person. I want the right person to be nice to my staff, and I want them to, I don't want this business to be round. And then when it comes down to, all right, we've got 4 offers, we think this person here is the best person to run your business. They'll get on well with you, they'll be nice to your stuff, but
It's 2x.
But they're 500 grand behind the person over here. Oh, don't worry about them. We'll have that guy. Thanks. I can tell you, it's 95% of the time. It really is. So
I think this is a real missed opportunity in this country. I was in Kathmandu at the start of last year and had some friends, some networking kind of stuff that we did over there. And I met some people, 3 different families that were up to the 4th generation of people working in that family business.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to comment whether they were all ecstatic about the place that they'd found themselves, because 1 or 2 of them weren't. But the consequence for the businesses is that the families had accumulated a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
They'd built a huge defendable position in the market they operated within, because the clarity of vision, the consistency of execution, the reputation based upon the family name, which was often above the door, was phenomenal. And so there was a real legacy that got built. And you talked before about migrants coming to New Zealand and looking for a business they can get their family involved in. And you kind of go, whether or not they can execute a model is a different question. But if you've got a business you can pass down from 2, 3, 4 generations, and I know some New Zealand family-owned businesses that have managed to achieve that, you just end up with such a magnificent powerhouse of a thing, which is, at the M&A, the investment banker end of town, deal doing, a couple of hundred, I've spoken to M&A advisors that I know about some of the deals that have gone through this year, 3rd or 4th generation family businesses, $500 million, $750 million kind of thing. And I reckon it's a missed opportunity in this country. And I've thought about it, and I'm curious on your thoughts on it. It's that in the West, of which we are a part, we have this notion of individuality. So individualism over collectivism. Whereas in the East, which is where it is, then they're very much about the collective.
Yeah, the family. You might have your grandmother living with you.
Compounds. I went to compounds.
We still live that here.
3 to 5 acres, and there's these mansions that were sitting in there, and then there's granddad's over there, Uncle John's over there. I'm using the wrong name, but westernizing it. And then 2 kids with their mansion that it's in the same compound, and they've got the same family business, and this thing's doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of revenue and a super enviable profit line. Whereas in this part of the world, we've got the whole, they're going to dream and be the things that they want to be. And, if Johnny wants to be a dancer, then that's great. We're going to encourage Johnny to be a dancer. Whereas in the West, they're like, you're working in the family business, like it or not. That is your destiny.
Yeah.
Now, it's very different in terms of how it plays out, but the consequence for business it's remarkable. Have you got a view on that?
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the map, hit the nail on the head. I think the East has probably got something over us there. But you're right. I'm a parent, and you want the best for your children, so it's all like, what do you want to do? And they have all these grand ideas, and you let them do it, and they go and choose their subjects. But really, we probably should be a little bit harder on them and guide them to where perhaps we think they ought to be, because you don't know what you don't know when you're young as well. So I couldn't agree more, and that is what you just mentioned does not happen in New Zealand, very infrequently. Even the farmers, the farmers used to be really good at handing the farm to them. Even the next son, the world's just a different place now. You've got, I guess you can, if you're like used to be a farmer in somewhere like Ashburton, you could sort of go, I don't really need to leave Ashburton. I don't really know much. But nowadays, with social media, you can see so many things that people want to explore more and do more. I guess we're better educated. We just see more opportunities.
Yeah.
And that just is taking people away from what they view as a bit of a narrow opportunity. So you're spot on. And I think New Zealand business is worse off because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be making less income because you'd be selling less businesses because it'll be passed on through the generation. And then you get bigger businesses to sell.
So shush your mouth.
Yeah. We'll edit that out. No, we won't. So there's another interesting thing that comes into play here is that there is with the culture around individual personal decision making, and it's kind of been classed with the woke term, right? And so, especially around gender identification, this is a delicate subject, so I'll choose my words very carefully. But I have some friends whose kids have decided that at 12, 13, 14 years old, that they identify as the gender which is not the one that they are born as.
All right, yep.
I'm not going to comment on that. What I will comment on, broadly speaking, is us as a species making big life decisions before our prefrontal cortex is even remotely close to being formed. That's the executive set of your brain. It occupies about 10% of our brain mass, but it consumes about 50% of its energy. And so it's the thing that enables us to think, to prioritize, to plan, and to evaluate things. Now, we know that thing's not formed until we're about 22, 25, right? So that's why we make such dumb decisions when we're in our teens. Now I think about myself, right? So I've made some clanger decisions, right, in my teens, and in my 20s I started to get vaguely better, and in my 30s I started to know myself and the world a little bit better. So they've continued to get better and better and better. But by the way, I still make some dumb decisions.
Still do.
Far less of them than I used to, and much more aware of the consequences of this. And so back to the family business thing, like, is it necessarily a bad thing? It's like the whole arranged marriage thing that happens in certain cultures where, like, so you don't know. Did you know, by the way, that if your marriage is arranged, it is far more statistically likely to succeed than if you choose your own partner?
You are kidding.
75% success rate versus about a 60%, 58% success rate.
Interesting.
If you choose your own partner. So we have proven that if you have individual decision on that as a young person, you're going to get it wrong, whereas your family's more likely to get it right. Shared values, shared opportunities, community, all these sorts of things. And so to round that point out about the whole family business, maybe we'd be better just to go, hey, Johnny, you're going to get the business. I don't want to become a dancer. Do that on your weekends.
Yeah.
You're going to come and learn how to run the business.
Yeah.
So, Chris, are your kids involved in your business?
No, they're not. Mine are 18, 16, and 13.
Yeah.
So, but I've got, my daughter is off to Otago University next year to do
the oldest.
She's the oldest. She's doing accounting and finance degree.
Oh, and they're kind of in dad's state.
And so if she shows an interest,
yes,
who knows? And the other two, they both, my son's seriously interested in politics and business, and so is they actually all are actually. So who knows? Wait and see on that one.
Chris, you served on a government advisory board in 2025 to talk about the business investor visa, the BI visa.
Yeah, so that was a.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, they want some people from the sector. So it was myself and a couple of others from the business brokerage sector. Obviously, business investment visa is, someone who's going to come here. So they really want to get our take on how's it going to work. So these people will only get the visa if they buy a business. So they really want to understand, what does $1 million buy them? Because I think that's the minimum amount these people need to spend. So we gave them volumes of businesses, sectors. So just gave them the data that we've got around how it's going to work. So that sort of gave them the information to then go back to Wellington and work out how it's going to work. And then I talked about the process. So how does someone buy a business? I very much went down the path of, I thought a pre-approval would work well. E.g., Mr. Smith from America comes in here, gets pre-approved for that visa, and then he's going to go and buy a business. That would make it a cleaner transaction. Where I think they're heading is that Mr. Smith shows an interest in the visa. He'll come and see me and a lawyer and whoever else. We go, here's the right business. Then when he's agreed to buy that business, he then takes that to the immigration department, goes, right, here's the business I'm going to buy. Can you tick me off?
Is that pre-approval? It sounds like it is.
No, because what he's done, he's gone to the business owner. I'm putting an offer on your business subject to me getting the visa. I'm now going to go to the immigration department. So the immigration department are working really well in regards to I said to them, we can't have a person waiting 6 months for a visa because the business owner's not going to put up with them. They're going to sell it to someone easier. So they're making an undertaking. They're going to turn those visas around super quickly, in which case, if it fits in, e.g. if it can fit in with the 20 DD working days, which is quite standard for buying a business, and a visa becomes like getting your finance, you get your visa.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where it's heading.
So there's been some motions that have been happening in and around government over the last 12 months or so, and putting aside ideologies, they've been bringing some things in which have actually been able to be executed very, very quickly. Whether speed means that we're going to sacrifice quality and thoroughness is a question that needs to be answered. But I had a business that we employed a bunch of technology folk, software developers, testers, that sort of thing. And if I go back to the days when we were having to get a whole lot of staff to deliver into these projects, we'd be able to get a visa turned around in 48 hours.
Great.
And so that was then, but we recognized at that point in time, and it was in the mid-noughties, just pre-GFC and then post-GFC when the market started to pick up again, that the government was very aware that this was a critical thing that they had to turn around. I've got a good friend that I'll get back on the show, Will Palmer, who's just been living overseas for 10 months, and he lived in San Francisco for a good chunk of that, but then traveled around some other places, and it was around building his 2 startups. And so we both share the same sentiment that New Zealand has I think a marketing problem at the moment, like an attractiveness problem right now. We've been doing it tougher than most other Western.
Tourism numbers still aren't back to where they were. I think we're 90-odd%. And the rest of the Western, I know Italy's at like 130%. Like everyone's got a lot more popular. We seem at least.
States is the opposite because of the what's happening with, I'll pick my words carefully again here. So getting into the States,
neutral political, if you can.
Has been very difficult. And so I know founders have been turned away because they have expressed views about what is the situation in the United States at the moment, which has seen them be detained and then rejected. So that's a whole different problem. It's an ideological problem, and I'm not wading into that. But because of the economic challenge we've seen in New Zealand and the performance of the economy, broadly speaking, perhaps some rhetoric around what it's like to live here, the flight again of New Zealanders heading overseas, that we have an opportunity to, because all problems are opportunities, right? To flip that on its head. And I think the United States is one of those places where historically it was quite hard to get access to New Zealand. So we've favoured other parts of the world, especially, and I don't know why other than history, but why have we favoured other Commonwealth countries above the United States? I don't know why we've done that.
No.
Because, the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, etc., they've always been kind of premium spots. And Canada has also been quite attractive. And over time, we've gone South and Central America, which, again, I'm very pro-immigration. We need to have guardrails around who we're bringing in and attracting to the country and making sure that they are ideologically, culturally aligned enough to bring cultural richness, but leave your ideological stuff at the door. Your things that are extreme views. Things. This is my opinion, right? And so we've got a real opportunity with things like the Golden Visa, the Business Investor Visa, and other things to go, let's, highlight how amazing a place New Zealand is to live, to raise kids, to get educated, the healthcare system. They are still are world class. And one of my views is that we have a gutter press problem in New Zealand. We have journalism has completely dropped through the floor.
Probably best if I don't get quite fired up about this topic.
Okay, as do I actually.
I think we're reading off the same hymn sheet.
It seems like on many fronts, Chris. So the opportunity is there to reverse this and get away from tabloidism and negativity and start talking about, how great this country really truly is. I presume you lived and worked overseas.
I was in London for 8 or 9 years.
Longer than I was 3 years and then a year in Sydney more recently in my history.
Been twins. I was 3 years in Sydney too.
Wow, stop it. Okay.
Sydney and London were 2 other places of work,
Right, interesting. So the collective opportunity for all of us is to not focus on the negative, look at the positive, 100%. And discourage people from going and living and working overseas just because they think New Zealand is not good. Individual personal responsibility, make it good.
It doesn't seem to be the attitude, does it? We're leaving lots of good people over to Australia. And I get it. Doing the OE, I think, is an important thing.
I agree.
I think you got to do that and spread your wings. But
I don't think Australia's an OE though.
No, Australia's not. Australia's great fun,
but
it's not an OE. I mean, it's an extension of. Well, they'll say we're an extension of Australia. We'll say they're an extension of us. But I agree. You're not really having a massive cultural uplift by going to those sorts of places. But we're in a bit of a tough spot at the moment in that regard. But we're all fixable.
I agree totally. So, Chris, we've had a wide-ranging conversation. Is there anything about your profession, your career that we haven't spoken about that's of real interest to you, or anything that's front of your mind, which would be a topical discussion for us to?
No, I think we've covered it nicely.
I feel like we have.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it.
So, the alternate universe career conversation. You've had a career in corporate finance. You're now in the SME M&A kind of space. But if there was another Chris Small who had another very deeply satisfying career, he lived in a different universe, what would that career have been?
Well, I did dip my toes into sports agency for a while.
Oh, like Jerry Maguire.
Yeah. So I was at Jerry Maguire for a year. So, and I was there right at the forefront of when professional sport was just taking off. It was in 1999, I think.
99 in New Zealand.
Yep, in New Zealand. So, so I did dip my toes into that. So, but I didn't continue. And a good friend of mine is now doing that, and he's doing really well. And so that probably would have been. It was a space I was interested in, but it was just too new, and
too early.
The person I was working with wasn't ideal. Blah blah blah. But anyway, so yeah, that might be a place I'd ring. I love sport, all sport.
Okay.
So running a sports team, or the professional side of sport, whether it be Sky Sports or a professional league team or gridiron team, whatever, football. I love all sports. So something with sports and business would be my next passion after what I'm doing now.
I love it. Unexpected answer, as they often are.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, great conversation. I love the ground that we have covered. I think what we'll do is we'll get together in like a year or so and just talk about how these things have played out, this business investment visa, what's going on with the demographics and the trends. I'm going to do a panel actually at that stage of folk that represent the different sectors and kind of talk about how we're performing and how we're getting on. So very grateful for you coming on the show today.
Too easy. I loved it. Thanks very much for hosting us. It's been great.
Cheers, Chris.
Cool.
Nice. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Your ears are really important to me. If you haven't already, why not check out joshcomrie.com. There's a bunch of free resources on there, a downloadable chapter of my upcoming book, 2 commas, a diagnostic to help you understand where your business may be at in relation to your exit journey. And why not feel free to drop me an email with any feedback that you could have. Any way I and any of us can improve is through feedback. Thanks again for listening.